From CBS News Bay Area, this is the Morning Edition.
I don't think you're going to see the kinds of crowds that you had, up until March of 2020.
Governor Gavin Newsom and lawmakers reach a state budget deal. I'll break down what's in it and the plan to help rescue our cash-strapped public transit that'll cost you more money, Amanda.
And Justin, it's another sign of a struggling downtown San Francisco, the new record for empty office buildings in the city.
Plus, we are getting an in-depth look at Stephen Curry's journey from Davidson to an NBA champion.
How did I get here? I was the undersized, scrawny kid that was just trying to figure out how to make it.
The new trailer for a documentary on the Warriors star.
And grab that hot tea, coffee, even a jacket. We're off to a cool start today, but a big change with a lot of heat on the way right around the corner. I'll have that coming up in your first alert forecast.
Well, the metering lights are on at the Bay Bridge Toll Plaza. Plus, we are tracking brake lights along 880 due to a crash. I'll have the latest information on that coming right up.
Hey, good morning to you. I love how my director just explained us this image. We're not looking at very much right now from Mark Coppin's camera. A little foggy outside. Hard to really see much. So, Jess, what's that visibility like if you're down below and heading out on the roads?
Yeah, it's not that bad at the surface level. And even as we take a look at the Golden Gate Bridge, driving's fine, but that marine layer is holding about 200, 300 feet just above. So we're off to a gloomy start this morning. And let's actually start off with that Golden Gate Bridge. Visibility, like I mentioned, not that bad as you're heading across anywhere from Marin all the way down into San Francisco or vice versa, but it's still laying kind of low. We're seeing about half the bridge right now, so if I were to crouch below that, that's kind of where we're at currently. You can even see it from our live look right now. The winds are starting to get a little bit breezier, though. We're going to see winds actually get up to around 20 miles per hour along the coast heading into this morning. About 30-mile-per-hour winds expected into this afternoon, but that's just wind gusts, so at that short period of time. Overall, not that bad today. Now, current temperatures throughout the Bay Area sitting in the 50s. We're off to a mild start this morning. I mentioned it earlier. Grab a jacket before you head outside. Grab some hot coffee, some hot tea. You're not going to need that later this week, though. I mean, I'm going to actually start saying something different. We're going to need cold tea, cold coffee heading into this weekend's forecast because daytime highs today, despite the fact that they're still sitting below average, we have a big change in the setup for us heading into the 4th of July weekend. Temperatures are going to rise a lot. We're going to see a lot more 90s off in those East Inland Hills, even some triple digits in the forecast in certain pockets. 70s in the heart of the Bay and 60s just along the coast. I'll have more on this coming up in a bit, but for now, how are the roads looking this morning, Gianna?
Got really busy just within the last couple of minutes. We are tracking a crash along 880, plus meter lights are on at the Bay Bridge, and now we also have a traffic alert for that ride westbound 580 towards the Dublin interchange. So let's get to it. Live look here at the Bay Bridge, metering lights are on, and look at that backup already well beyond that 880 overpass. That is a slow ride for anyone making that ride over into San Francisco. No crashes there, that's the good news, but if you're taking 880 northbound, they just cleared a crash near A Street. Southbound, though, pretty busy out of San Lorenzo into Hayward this morning. So keep that in mind if you're headed towards the San Mateo Bridge. If you are making that ride north of there, heading past the Coliseum, it's a little crowded, but moving a lot better than southbound traffic is. Now, westbound 580 backing up. It's a busy ride towards the Dublin interchange. We've got the usual conditions for a crowded commute, but if you are headed westbound near Doherty Road, near that 680 connector, the left lane is blocked due to some fire activity off to the side of the roadway. So you've got Caltrans on scene as well as fire crews. So that's causing a busier than what we typically see drive as you work your way through the Dublin interchange. Justin.
Developing this morning, a state budget deal now reached, and lawmakers say it protects California's investments. The agreement comes after weeks of deliberations, though, as Governor Gavin Newsom aims to support a future really focused on public education, health care, public safety, and public transportation. The governor agreed to $5.1 billion in spending over the next few years. So the money for BART and the other transit agencies in the state will include about $1 billion in new spending. The funding is just part of what transit agencies were asking for as a way to really help them recover from a steep ridership decline since COVID, which put them at risk of having to severely cut back on services. The same day this budget deal was approved, though, Senator Scott Wiener announced a new proposal that calls for all of us to pay more just to cross Bay Area bridges. This could raise tolls another $1.50 for 5 years, with the money going to Bay Area transit agencies.
The 7 state-owned bridges. That's all the Bay Area bridges except for the Golden Gate Bridge, which is its own entity. It will increase tolls by $1.50 over a 5-year period. That will generate over 5 years about $900 million and will help us avoid cuts.
If his proposal is approved, it would cost $8.50 next year to cross most Bay Area bridges. While this is just a proposal right now, we still wanted to know how commuters are feeling about it.
Well, I think there needs to be a conversation, especially including those who have to do the commute, those who will be actually paying the tolls, as opposed to just people who are pushing the legal paperwork.
Obviously, we'll see how far Senator Wiener's proposal goes in this approval process. As for that budget deal, Newsom says it prioritizes the needs of people in the state while keeping the state on strong economic footing. Gianna.
Yeah, well, Senator Wiener just mentioning the Golden Gate Bridge. Let's take a live look at the Golden Gate Bridge right now. Starting this Saturday, North Bay commuters are going to have to pay a little more to drive across. It's part of a multi-year toll increase program. The bridge's tolls are increasing by 25 cents. So with Fast Track, the rate jumps from $8.75 now to $9. The Golden Gate Transit bus and ferry will also go up a quarter. Amanda.
Let's look at our other top stories now. 2 mushroom farms in Half Moon Bay are facing thousands of dollars in fines for violations uncovered after the workplace shooting that killed 7 farm workers earlier this year. California Terra Garden was cited for 22 violations by Cal OSHA, including failing to have a plan for an active shooter situation. And Concord Farms was cited for 19 violations, including a failure to address previous cases of workplace violence. San Mateo County's ALAS organization has been helping the displaced workers land temporary housing. They say the companies need to step up and do more.
To me, this is not enough. We're talking about $160,000, the life of 7 farm workers doesn't compare. We have people that come, they still come to us, to our offices, and, when a conversation comes up, when they're struggling and they cry. We're talking about, more than 5 months later, and then they're still crying.
So we've reached out to both companies for a response. We will let you know when we hear back. Reports are coming in that Russia's security agency has closed its investigation into the Wagner Rebellion. Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke out on it for the first time since it happened this weekend, calling those leading the short-lived rebellion traitors who played into the hands of Ukraine's government and its allies. He also thanked Russia's government and its citizens for rallying behind what he called the fate of the fatherland in the face of the rebellion. During the unrest, the Wagner leader was leading his troops to Moscow before turning back. Yesterday, he said he was not trying to stage a coup against the Russian leader. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis unveiled his first major policy proposal for his 2024 presidential campaign, cracking down on illegal immigration. The plan includes ending birthright citizenship, finishing to build a southern border wall, sending U.S. military to the border, and terminate the catch and release policy. So those who enter without authorization are detained at the border until their court hearing. Earlier this month, he followed up those efforts with 2 more flights that sent migrants from El Paso, Texas, to Sacramento. A San Francisco woman is trying to find strength in a neighborhood she says is often cast to the side. She lives in the city's Tenderloin district. Recently, she nearly lost everything she owns due to an encampment fire right outside her apartment window. But instead of anger, she has compassion. Meta Yu has more on her struggle and why she says what is happening on her block isn't safe for anyone.
The first thing I saw or heard was like a large explosion, and I saw the flames hit my window.
Ashanti was among dozens of residents who evacuated their O'Farrell Street building in the Tenderloin at 3 a.m. on Friday.
It's been really hard. It's been difficult. Like I said, I probably get on average like 6 to 5 hours of sleep just because I'm constantly hearing the noise even if I close my window. It's nonstop. It's like the screaming, the yelling, the fighting.
Or worse, she said she often witnesses illegal activity at the encampments that can take over the entire block of Leavenworth. In the last year, the 24-year-old said countless fires have come dangerously close to her building.
These poor people got to clean up this because of them. We are really scared. I mean, like, I'm serious. I've never had to do this before. I pack an emergency bag.
This is Ashanti's first apartment since she herself was homeless. When she was 21, she fled an abusive relationship and lived in a tent in the Mission. She struggled with housing instability her whole life.
I know what it's like to deal with the street life every single day. And so like I understand where they're coming from, but then also there's so many resources out here as well.
With the help of Larkin Street Youth Services, she turned her life around and now works full-time. Like many of her longtime neighbors, they feel that their calls for help to the mayor, Supervisor Dean Preston, and emergency services have largely been ignored.
In the last 6 months, it seems like our building in particular, has been under attack.
A couple times I had homeless people lunge at me.
In December, a federal judge issued a preliminary injunction that temporarily prevents the city from clearing encampments if there aren't immediate shelter beds available. The city is appealing, but it can still enforce ordinances regarding threats to public health and safety.
I used to think that I could handle living on the border of the Tenderloin and walking through the Tenderloin. No longer. I'm really afraid.
The fire burned a recently vacated dry cleaning shop after neighbors said the owner could no longer deal with the problematic encampments.
Tenderloin is not just residents who are all drug dealers and stuff like that. We have normal lives, and it's being affected. This wouldn't happen in any other district. I just feel like us in the Tenderloin were kind of left out.
We reached out to Supervisor Preston and the Department of Emergency Management, which oversees encampment activity. We'll let you know when we get a response.